Well, my last video was my favorite horror books. I figured I might as well, for this one, be my favorite science fiction books, which I started reading before I read horror. I started off reading science fiction. In fact, I started writing and having science fiction stories published in magazines like Asimov's before I ever attempted to write horror. Anyway, we're going to start with a classic, Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End. Some of you may be old enough to remember an old TV miniseries called V, where these supposedly friendly aliens suddenly showed up in their huge flying saucer starships that just sat up there in the air over all the major cities. If you're a little bit newer to the game, you probably watched the movie Independence Day, where again, these huge saucer-like spaceships appeared and took up position over all the major cities in the world. Well, guess what? In 1953, Arthur C. Clarke already wrote that. Huge flying saucer spaceships appear and take a position over all the major cities of the world. The difference between Childhood's End and those later miniseries and movies was Clarke's ships didn't do anything. They just sat there, up in the air, not moving. And they sat there for an entire generation of people, so that there finally came a day on Earth where there wasn't anyone left alive who didn't have those ships up in the sky all the time, every day. So when it finally became time for the aliens to make first contact, it wasn't such a shock. Typical of Clarke to think these things through. And when they did make contact, it was essentially the end of our childhood. And the rest of the book just follows. Other Clarkes that I liked, he did the 2001 novelization of the movie. That was decent. Oh, I can't think. The others I read so long ago in my junior high school library, like A Fall of Moondust, books like that. They were all fine. Tales of the White Heart. But this, I think, this and Rendezvous with Rama, I think, are his best books. John Varley. One of my favorite science fiction writers is John Varley. This is a novel-length version, Millennium, of a short story he wrote that won the Hugo for Best Short Story of the Year. I forget what year. And that short story was called Air Raid. And they ended up making a movie out of it with this name, which is probably why this happened. But the short story was amazing. Imagine a future where everybody is so messed up. Humanity has done so much damage to itself that they can't fix themselves on their own. They actually have to send teams back in time to our era to take over aircraft, passenger aircraft, that they know, because they're from the future, are about to either slam into a mountain or collide with another plane or eat a bunch of Canadian geese and take a nosedive. So what they do in the minutes just prior to those catastrophes, they kidnap all of the healthy humans in the aircraft, shoot them back to the future, replace them with basically human flesh, just like humans that are already dead, that they have no use for, that they've created for just this purpose, so that when the plane does crash and the investigators are going over the wreckage, they'll find, little fragments of flesh, however people get completely messed up during an aircraft crash. So there's never any wonder, well, where'd the people go? The people are there. It's not the people that were originally on the plane. They're already in the future being harvested for their organs, for their skin, for their eyes. It's very creepy, but a wonderful story. Anyway, Varley turned this into a novel, and this works well too. But Varley, in my opinion, really shone with a trilogy of books. There's the man. Beginning with Titan. This is a book club edition. This is a book about the discovery of a almost sentient being the size of a moon orbiting Saturn, which up until that point astronomers on Earth had thought was just another one of Saturn's satellites, but it turns out to be a world with intelligent blimps, with centaurs, with these flying harpies, an entire ecosystem. What this book also does is it introduces the world to Shirako Jones, in my opinion, one of the most important figures in science fiction. When was this published? This was published in 1979. When did Alien come out? Was that 79 or 80? I can't get past the idea that maybe Ridley Scott and his screenwriter, Dave O'Bannon, had Shirako Jones in mind when they created Ripley for the Alien movies. I'm probably wrong, but if you imagine Ripley on steroids, that's Shirako Jones. And she alone is worth the price of admission for this book, as well as exploring this this sentient satellite world called Gaia. Anyway, I said it was a trilogy, and it was. The second book is called Wizard. There's sort of an image of what Gaia would look like. Again, the blimps, and these are actually sentient jet aircraft who try to blow the blimps out of the water. Those centaurs again. Oh, and the sex between humans and these centaurs. It's pretty spicy. Surprising, but if you're north of 12, you should be fine. More Shirako Jones as she adapts to this world, refusing to return to Earth. To the point where, in the third book, Demon, she becomes sort of the enemy who needs to be taken down, or maybe not. Anyway, if you ever wanted to read great 80s era science fiction, these are it. I mentioned this book in my second video, Eric Frank Russell, Men, Martians, and Machines. This is a series of stories beginning with J Score, and that's a play on words. You find out when you read the story what J Score really means and who J Score really is. He's a member of the crew along with a group of crazy chess-playing, lazy Martians on various space opera adventures. Hal Clement, Needle. I remember one of the first science fiction conventions that I attended, it was in Philadelphia, and I was on a panel with other writers and illustrators. I forget what the panel subject was, but this elderly gentleman sat down next to me, and I looked at his name tag, and it said Harry Tubbs, and I said, well, what? That's Hal Clement. This is a pseudonym. And so, I had to say, oh, Mr. Tubbs, Needle, I love Needle. It's one of my favorite novels. The usual fan thing. This is a really cool book, though. Alien detective is pursuing a criminal, another alien criminal. That criminal crash lands on Earth, and so the alien detective pursues him. But the only way he can get to the criminal is if he actually enters the body of this little boy. It becomes like a symbiotic relationship between the alien inside the boy and the boy trying to discover where the criminal, the alien criminal, is hiding. Who's harboring the criminal? Needle in a haystack, sort of thing. So it's a great, sort of like a murder mystery or just plain old mystery, a science fiction one. Okay, Zena Henderson, The Anything Box. This is a collection of stories she wrote about the people who were aliens who settled on Earth at some point, but they look exactly like humans, Homo sapiens. You can't tell them apart. So they kind of blended right in. And that was like the setting for all of these wonderful, wonderful stories. But they're all good. They're all good. I don't know if this is still in print. Probably get an ebook. I would definitely check her out. She's one of the great unsung women science fiction writers from the 70s.